All right, so we got our first unofficial look at VJ Edgecombe on an NBA court here with the 76ers matching up against the Knicks in the first preseason game. This one was in Abu Dhabi. Both teams were not at full power and strength. The Knicks had majority of their starters outside of OG Anunoby, while the Sixers pretty much featured one of their all-star players in Tyrese Maxey. So as I said, I wanted to focus today on VJ Edgecombe and his performance in his first preseason game. First and foremost, I'll say this. I love the situation that he is in, right? I love whenever you can get a lottery pick dropped into a situation where he is expected to contribute to winning. The 76ers right now are in a place where they are expected to make a really, really deep playoff run. Since 2018, when they were first looked at as a legitimate threat in the East, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and other guys coming in and out, they have been unable to make a really deep playoff run despite having some really talented rosters. So this season, there's a lot of pressure on this franchise to make a deep run and potentially make a run to the NBA Finals. And I really like that Edgecombe was drafted and dropped into a situation quite like this. There is no better early on experience to get than contending or playing on a contending team very early in your NBA career. So today in this game, he put up 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. And there were two things in particular that really stood out to me in his debut game here for Philly. For one, it was his off-ball play, particularly his ability to cut to the basket. There were a few times today where he did a really good job of recognizing cutting angles and finding a way to get to the rim. That is something that Nick Nurse has emphasized with his guards in Philly since day one of being here with this team, making slot cuts, finding angles to the basket off the ball, those sorts of things. Edgecombe did that at a very high level here in this particular game. That's going to be a must for him this upcoming season, playing alongside with other ball dominant players like Embiid, Maxey, and maybe Paul George and a few other guys, right? Being able to recognize cutting angles and make those cuts can bail out a lot of empty possessions. Maybe if you're having Tyrese Maxey guarded well in isolation, Edgecombe's ability to cut to the basket and find the rim will be very valuable in making something out of nothing throughout these offensive possessions here for the 76ers. Again, Nick Nurse has emphasized that a ton since coming over here to Philly, and Edgecombe can fit perfectly within that sort of scheme here in his first season for the 76ers. I don't think he's going to be a ball dominant player, right? So he's got to be very creative with how he finds his offense and finds his ability and opportunities to score the basketball, and finding cutting angles and taking advantage of that is going to be super important for him this season. And I thought he did an amazing job at that here in his first unofficial game with the 76ers. Another thing I really like to see from Edgecombe here in his first unofficial game here with the 76ers was his connective playmaking. That is a very underrated skill set that makes you super valuable on the court as a guard or as a forward or as a center, right? He's not dominating possessions every single time around as a setup guy and orchestrator, but he is able to find players off of his ability to cut to the rim, whether he's making passes off of those cuts on the perimeter or setting up guys with these dump off passes at the basket. He does a really good job at just being a good connective playmaker. Again, not dominating possessions each and every time with the ball in his hands, but when he's able to find those opportunities, being able to make the right play and right read and set up guys throughout the game. Did that a ton here in this first matchup against the Knicks. Again, he's not going to be ball dominant. There are other guys in Philly who are going to do that this season, so he has to be very creative with how he is contributing on the offensive end. He's not a strong shooter, not a strong off the dribble scorer and breakdown guy, so he's going to be very creative with the opportunities he gets. And one way he's done that so far here is with his connective playmaking and passing. That was one of his most underrated skill sets coming into the draft, and again showed that off a ton here in this first game for the Philadelphia 76ers. That is going to be so valuable for him as he is looking to be a valuable contributor to this team as they're trying to get over the hump out in the Eastern Conference. Now, he wasn't perfect. There were other things he had to work on. His three-point shooting needed a ton of work, which could be a bit worrisome as, again, he'll be out there on the court playing with other ball-dominant players. So in that type of situation, you would want somebody who can be ready to knock down shots on the perimeter, not a massive strength of his, right? Also wasn't great with his finishing angles and ball security and things like that. But with preseason games, you cannot overreact. You can look at the good flashes and take things from that. And I thought there were a lot of really good flashes he showed off here in this first matchup in the preseason, and a lot of skill sets that he showed off that Nick Nurse can work with this upcoming season for the 76ers, as again, they are trying to contend for a title after just not being able to get over the hump in the Eastern Conference year after year after year. So Edgecombe has a perfect opportunity here to maybe not be rookie of the year, right? But be one of those guys who very early on in his career can contribute with his all-around skill set and his off-ball ability to a team that is looking to make a lot happen in the Eastern Conference. And I think the 76ers have a lot of room to make stuff happen. The East is thinner, but a lot of it comes down to health. But I think Edgecombe is going to be able to fill in a lot of gaps for this team as they have a lot of on-ball players and ball-dominant guys. He can be a good connector sort of player to make things come together for Philly as they're trying to make things happen this season in the Eastern Conference.